right. Hello. Hello together. Hello, everyone. And since this is a lunch break, I wish you all who brought their salad a bon appetit. My name is Sebastian Kuehnau. I work as a developer advocate for a company called Vaadin. And it's not only a company, it's also a creator of a beautiful Java framework, which allows you to create web applications in the Java ecosystem. So you, as a Java developer, you don't need to leave your comfort zone. And today I'm going to give you an intro how to use Vaadin, how to set up Vaadin, how to do the first steps. And after one textual slide, I'm going to jump into my IDE and then I show you how Vaadin works in practice. But first of all, a quick word about myself. As I already mentioned, my name is Sebastian Kuehnau. I work for Vaadin in the beautiful office of Berlin for 10 years right now, or for nearly 10 years right now. And I came across Vaadin during my studies in university, and I was a back-end developer at that time. And I was very bored by looking at my terminal or take a look into my logs to see what my application is actually doing. And I was very happy that I found Vaadin at that time. And I could create or I could visualize my data and also see what my application is doing and implement it interactive. And it was actually possible with just a few programming steps. So it was very easy to implement. Since I'm with Vaadin, I'm helping Java developers actually to create web applications and without leaving their comfort zone. And yeah, when I'm outside of the office, you will mostly find me outdoors in the mountains, on the water, somewhere outside. So let's take a look on what Vaadin is. Vaadin is actually focusing on Java developers so that they're happy what they're doing and that they can work in their comfort zone to implement a web UI. So you just need to code, or you can code your UI in Java only, and you don't need to touch any JavaScript, any CSS, any HTML until you want that, or you want to implement something very individual. It is a component-based framework, so all our visuals are components, and you create, for example, a view or a web page starting from a component. You will see it later on in the code. It's a full-stack framework, or our goal is actually to keep everything full-stack. That means that you, in your development team, you can keep everything in one tech stack. So you can do the business implementation with Java and also the UI implementation. So we try to save the time when backend developers and frontend developers try to solve a problem. You can actually keep everything in one tech stack and make it way easy and very fast actually to evolve your application and to progress your application. Vaadin is open source. That means you find all our sources, all our comments on GitHub. And if you have any issue with the framework, if you have any questions, we are very happy to see any tickets there or any comments from your side. And we are looking forward to your contribution. Since we are on the Java ecosystem, and there are a lot of very good and very efficient web technologies, we utilize those tools like NPM, like Vite, like Webpack, to download the necessary client-side dependencies as well as bundle any front-end stuff. And this allows actually to have a very good developer experience. So I'm going to use an example project. You will find it on my GitHub account. When you have questions afterwards, trying it out, just contact me on my email. And we have a booth downstairs. So in case you want to come along and discuss anything, just come there. We have many people there, answer your questions, and I will be there later. I will be there available later on as well. So next, let's get over to the IDE. So here we have a normal Spring Boot project. So it's extending the Spring Boot startup parent, and it looks like a normal Java project. And to add Vaadin here, we just need to add one dependency, this one, and then we have the choice between Vaadin core or Vaadin plain. Vaadin core contains all 3 components. With Vaadin, you also can use our commercial components, but today we are going with our free plan. And then we need to add the Vaadin version. And then what we also need, so in this dependencies, it contains all our components as well as tools actually to start the client-side tool chain, for example, NPM as well as Webpack or Vite. To check our Java sources actually to look for any specific or individual client-side component, we also need to add a plugin. And this plugin is, let me quickly type it, and then 24, and then Vaadin Maven plugin, and this plugin is actually taking a look into your Java sources if there is any client-side dependency which needs to be downloaded, and it's also generating meta files like the package JSON, which you might know from any other web technology or any other web framework. And then it could utilize NPM to download the necessary dependency. I also need to add there an execution. And then goals. And then go. And then we prepare the front end. And right now, if I'm going to start my application, I'm doing it with the hotswap agent from IntelliJ, because if I'm doing any changes right now in my Java code, it gets hot deployed into my browser, and then and then we see the changes pretty fast on the left-hand side. So right now the application started. Something happening already here, but we have no view available. But this is showing some start instructions. And if we take a look right now into our project, we have next to our source main Java, we also have 2 other directories. One is the bundle, and in the bundle there's one big chunk, one big dev bundle file, and this file contains all the client-side dependencies. We put everything into one big file because it's easier to download, and also it's easier to handle it in the IDE. If you want to see all the client-side dependencies, you need to change one property. It's the hot deploy property. And then you will see that there is one node modules folder as well as the package JSON and all the other files you need to configure your web environment. To add right now a view, there's also another directory called frontend, and that contains any client-side sources you would provide to the front end, and which could be bundled by Webpack or Vite, and that contains, for example, CSS files, or if you have any individual implementation of web components or JavaScript integration, you could add it to the front end folder, and then it pick up during runtime. To add a view, we open up our Java source folder, and then we see basically we have here one bean, and then also one repository. That's basically a Spring Data JPA repository, and it's an interface to our backend. And it could be database, it could be a REST interface, or even a floppy disk if you want to implement that. To add a view, we can basically create another package here, and we call it UI, and we create a new Java class. And this Java class is called Hello Vaadin View. So, and then we have a Java class. This Java class, we can extend it from a component, like a horizontal layout. The horizontal layout as well as the vertical layout, it can contain a couple of other components, and it does what it says. It will align the things in a horizontal way. So right now we can add here components in the constructor. And then I could add, for example, a component like h1 so that we see something on the screen. Whoop. Hello, Vaadin. And then what I need to do as well, I need to make this component available when I call my application in the browser. The servlet needs to know what to pick up when I have the landing page or when I want to make the landing page available. For that reason, we also need to add annotation. That also is provided by the Vaadin framework, and I keep it in this case. If I want to have a simple landing page, I can keep it empty. It's also possible to add there any other string and make this page available under a certain URL in on your application server. Having this right now, I'm going to restart my project, and then I can basically start with the implementation. And I have my headline here, hello Vaadin. In the next step, we can do some more sophisticated. For example, we could add there a name field, and we take the text field, and then your name. And then we can take, for example, not a text field, but for example, a button, which says hello. So since we are open source, you can also look into the different components and see and download the sources, and then you can also see the comments of each method, as well as what the whole framework is doing, and that makes it very easy to debug it. If there is some behavior in your application you don't understand, then you can just go into the code and see the comments and also find some help there. Right now, I can basically add, or in the next step, I need to add both components to my underlying layout. And then if I save it, I have both components in here. Right now, I can add, for example, some distance between, or some gap between the browser edge, or the browser boundaries and the components. And then I can also put the components, because the text field is a little bit higher than the button. I can also align the components, not center, but for example in the end. And then saving it, I have everything in one line. And right now I can click into the components and use them. In the next step, I want to, for example, I want to create a notification when I click the button, and the notification should take the value from the text field and put it into the, or show it to the user. For that reason, I can take the instance of the button, and then I can take a look what kind of listeners I have here. And I have here a click listener. And here I can call notification. The notification is also a component provided by Vaadin. And I can call there the method show. And then I also take the value from the name field and show it in the notification. And right now, if I add there my name, say hello, then I see the notification. So very, very straightforward, very easy. Since we have a backend here, I would like to list, for example, the items, the elements from the database. To do this, I can basically remove everything and then use one of our famous components, which is the grid. And this grid, you will see that there is that this component is typed. And here I can add my bean, so I don't need to create any other class, any other data transfer object. I can directly get or connect the component with the bean from the front end. Although I also could use a DTO, for example, to process data or to make the data appear in a nice way. I can add this grid right now to the to my layout, and then you will see that an empty grid is appearing here. Let me also add a set margin so that I have some distance between the browser and the component. And to add right now columns, I can call the instance of the component, and then I can call the add column method. And in this column method, actually, to take one property out of the bean, I can use method references, as well as I can use the object of one bean, and then, for example, call each and every method I want to have. In this case, we have the get name, and right now I have a column called name. I also need to set a header, and then in case I want to sort the items in the list, I also need to make it sortable and then true. In the next step, I can inject my backend interface, and then I can make this component, or I can set items into the component by calling my backend interface. There's a method called findAll that returns a list of the beans in the database, and then I put it into my grid. And when I save it, then I see that I have there a list of names. Right now, if I want to see all the other properties, I could do it for all the other properties, or I could add a column for all the other properties as well. I have here a very simple example, but if we have a very huge bean, that might take a lot of time. And to save that time, what you could also do is you could use some automatism from Vaadin, that you add the bean type as a constructor parameter. And then Vaadin is using reflections to analyze the type of the bean, getting all the properties out of this bean and putting it as a column into the component. And in a very fast way, we see what's in our database, and it shows the whole bean in each line. We also have options right now to configure the amount of columns in a very easy way. In that way, we are using the property name as a parameter, and if we list them in a certain order in the set columns method, we can also configure the grid, so it shows the columns in the right order. In the next step, we would like to change basically the items so that we have some kind of a CRUD. So we want to create a form here, and then when we select one item, that we populate the values from the bean into the form. Instead of using AI here, I created a tag, a GitHub tag, and that prepares a little bit of that saves some writing time. So what I have here, I still have my grid here, and then I created a component for the name, for the age, and for the email. For the name, I took the text field. For the age, I took the integer field, and for the email, I took the email field. And then I also created a save button as well as a cancel button, and I put everything in a vertical layout so that all the components are underneath each other. And then I also add in a horizontal alignment the save button and the cancel button. Right now, if I want to, and you see already the results on in the browser. And right now, if I want to populate the items from the grid into the form, I can call the grid and see, hey, do we have here some kind of listener that will be that invokes some code whenever I select the item, and I see, hey, there is a selection listener. If I take a look into the selection listener and see what's in the event, I see, hey, there could be all selected items, so a set of persons, and also the first selected items. Because the grid component, it could be also multiple selected. And since in our case I have not a multiple selectable grid, I could use our API, for example, to say as single select. This will return a grid which is single selected, and there I could use the value change listener to get the event back. And then if I take a look into the event, I see that I get there only one person. And that's basically how single select grid works. So I can take this this bean right now. And right now, for example, I could go to my form field here and then set the value. And right now, whenever I click on one item, I see that the value got populated into the form. The problem again, we have a very simple case here, but what happens if we have a huge bean with a lot of different items? That might take some time actually to put all the different values into the right field. And we can also use here the automatism or some Java API, some tool in Vaadin to speed up the development here. And we also not only want to get the items out of the grid, we want to write them back into the database. And to speed up the development here, we have a data binding possibility or options in Vaadin, and therefore I need to instantiate the binder or component code or tool called binder. This is also typed. And I can also add here the bean type as a constructor parameter. Having this, I could also benefit from the reflection in Java. So the binder is actually analyzing the bean type, what properties are there, and they try to find a match with local input components. And if we take a look into the person, we have a name here, we have an age and the email. And if we take a look into our component, into our view, we have a text field, age and the email as a component, as an input component. And having this, I can call in my binder bind instance fields, and then I could forward the form or the component itself. And then I need to change the implementation in my select listener and write there binder and then read bind selected. And right now, if I select an item in my grid, it automatically populates all the values from the bean properties into the form. In the next step, I would like to write. So, for example, if it's John's birthday, I need to increase the age and then press save, and then I would like to store it in the database, and I would like to have a refresh in my grid to see the update there. To do so, I can create a click listener for my save button, and having this, I could get, or let's take a look what the binder API provides here. So we could write the bean if it's valid. That makes sense, basically. Also, we could just write the bean as it is. I would go for the write bean if valid. So there check if there is any validation error, and if this is happening, they are not going to forward the value into the database. And right now we need the current bean, and this is something we could get from our grid as single select and then get value. And then var selected equals, and then we could write this, or we could call this method, and then we add a if here. And right now we could write, for example, the result or the new bean into the repository. And then in the next step, instead of reload the whole data set from the backend, I could refresh only the item in the bean, and therefore I need to get the data provider. The data provider is a tool next to the grid, and that keeps the list of all the items for the component. And then I get the data provider, and then I refresh only the bean. I take the selected one, and then when I go to John, and then happy birthday, John, I see the result in the grid. If you want to cancel your implementation, you can, or the data edit. You could also call the binder again, and then you need to read the bean again. And therefore, I highly recommend to take the bean out of the grid again, and then set it into because it's the old state of the bean, and then set it again into the form. Selected grid, and then we can select it. And then if it's John's birthday and I have a mistype here, I can cancel, and then all changes got revoked. All right. Right now, I would like also to show you a little bonus, because whenever we have another user, so let's simulate another user here, and they're also accessing the data, and when they also make updates to John, at the same moment we run into a conflict, we run into a concurrent situation, and we usually resolve that in the back end, so that we tell that user A is making a change, and then user B is making a change, and whoever hits the save button first, they will get a their changes will go through, and then depending on your configuration, user B is going to overwrite the change, or they run into a conflict, and then they have to solve it afterwards. Vaadin provides one API there, the collaboration engine API, to make it actually easier to solve those conflicts. How to do this? Basically, also have another checkout here, and therefore we did all the implementation with the data binding. And to change to the collaboration engine, or to enable the collaboration engine in your browser or in your application, you can actually use the collaboration binder, and that contains also the bean type as well as the local user. The local user is something, or is a user you need to instantiate here, so that your user is actually, or that the collaboration engine know who they are talking to. And you can also connect the local user with any user information from your backend or from your SSO system, so that you see which user is doing what change. Let me restart it and then show you how it ends up in our IDE, or in our UI. So right now, if I have both users, application is not there yet. And then also here. And right now, if I have both users and I select one item, I see that one user has selected this item. This is a component which is also provided by Vaadin, and that's the avatar group, and it's also highly configurable. So you can add user pictures here, or you can also add there the username. And if I go to my second screen and then click the button or click the same item, I also see that there's another user here. And right now, if I go from my first view into my data fields, into my input fields, and I make some changes, first of all, I got a notification inside the input component of any other user who is attached to the same item. And whenever they make changes and they leave the field, the changes is also populated to the other input field and to all other users who are looking at the same user. How is this done code-wise? as I mentioned, we have a local user here. We have the collaboration binder here. We instantiated a new component, the avatar group, actually, to show in the form that a new user or that another user is also taking a look into the or on this item. And then, for example, if we select one item, we also so we need to set the bean into the binder, but we also need to define a topic so that whenever we look on a certain bean or whenever we look on a certain item from the grid, that we could differentiate. Hey, you are looking at the first user, second user, third user, etc. And for that reason, we need to define a topic, and that contains usually the bean type you are looking at, and then also the ID of each bean. And when you set the bean into the binder, you set basically the topic, and then you also provide the right bean to the binder. And you do the same for the avatar group, so that the avatar group knows, hey, there are two users who are currently looking at my bean, and then they show basically the results on the they're showing the results in the avatar group. The behavior when you save the icon or when you save the bean, it stays the same. So you can still write bean if valid, and then save it to the database, and then refresh the data in the data provider. And when you cancel one edit process, instead of read the bean again, you need to reset it, and there you use basically the same. We do the same procedure as we did last time, that we get the first selected grid, that we get the first selected item from our grid. All right, I'm basically done with my demo. Are there any questions? Yes. You mean that you added the data inside the grid? There is a possibility for the grid. There's you can add a form here, and then there's also a commercial component when you double-click on the grid that you could edit the data in there. But with the free plan, or actually with the open source component, you need to add here a form, an additional form that shows up inside the grid. So that would be possible. If you want to take a look into how this look like, I can recommend to go to this beautiful web page called Vaadin.com, and then to the docs, and then to the components. And here you see all our components which are available inside our framework. And there is the grid. And then there is the inline editing. And there basically you see here one example implementation and also the corresponding code. And here, when I edit it, right now I can change, for example, the data inside the grid right away. I hope that answers the question. Perfect, good. Any other question?
In the example, when the first user changed the grid on the second screen, was not updated. It's possible to update it.
Let's take a look. Right. Oh no. Then this left. And then, for example, we take John again, then we cancel everything. And then, wow, it's John's birthday again. And then 26. And then I press save. And then, no, it's only here. But I think you can also, the API should also allow it, basically, that when there is a new item available, that you refresh it in the grid. Should be also possible. Yeah, I can put this into my example, and then you will see how this works. Yeah. Any other question?
Yeah, I see that when you change the age from 26 on the left side,
Yeah.
it's automatically also change to the right side.
Yes, but
Which would
only.
be quite stupid, to be honest, if you have two people working on the same data, because I put in 28 there.
Yes. And then, but for example, if you have in the avatar, you see which user is currently editing the data you are working on, you could call them and discuss them. Hey, who's first? Who should make the changes?
But still, I already made changes. And
Yes. But what's also possible, what you could do, for example, that whenever the first user enter a form and a second user is coming in, that all the components are read-only. So that's also something you could implement, but that's a very individual requirement, but it's possible actually to do it with the with the collaboration binder. But that would be one use case or one workflow how you could solve this conflict. But actually, I find it way easier that you see the conflict right away in the UI instead of having any error message when you click the save button, or whenever you or that you have any error messages in the terminal. So I think it makes sense to show those conflict already in the UI. All right. Any other question? Yes. Not out of the box. You could use. I'm using a Spring Boot project here, so you can also use the Spring Security. And you can activate it, and then you can use annotations basically to access or to grant access to certain views. And we have a commercial component or a commercial kit to allow SSO in your application. But out of the box, it's not working. So you need to do some manual work. Good. Any other question? Yeah. What do you mean by mouse? There is drag and drop. There is a support for that, and for buttons, I don't know. Leif, do you know? Right click, left click. If you can differentiate the different events.
Yes, you can, and you can also set a context menu.
So yes, it's possible. Good. Any other question? If not, yeah, we also have, as I mentioned, we already have a booth downstairs. So in case of any questions after trying it out, you can show up there, and then we can answer any individual questions. All right. Then if there's no further question, thank you very much for showing up. And yeah.